This is the story of Cora Catalina Ang Sang, or Nee Daunton. She was also known throughout the court of Atlantis as Adrian's Siren due to her mermaid heritage and also just her mischievousness. She was born April 13th, 3001 BC. She died June 8th, 2986 BC. The photo that's on the screen now is the only official portrait of Cora. She was only ever depicted in her mermaid form, though the only difference is she doesn't have legs. She looked pretty much the same. She would have been about 14 in this portrait. And she was married to Adrian Mordred Ang Sang, June 8th, 2990 BC. She was roughly 11 while he was 10. They both married Anitra Lana Ang Sang Nee Frost. Well, Cora married her April 10th, 2987 BC. They had a different date than Anitra and Adrian. Her only biological child with Adrian was Luna Cora Ang Sang, who was born June 8th, 2986, the same day that Cora died. And then Brayden and Adam are Anitra's children with Adrian, but they're listed in the family trees as her stepchildren, and they were twins, born in August 2977 BC. Now, she was born Cora Catalina Daunton to Andrew James Daunton and Catalina Maria Gonzalez. Catalina was a mermaid from Errata, and her marriage to Andrew was a political one, although it wasn't unhappy. They did like each other, but it wasn't a love marriage. She is the niece to Lord James Daunton, the Baron of Hardrail. Her cousins were Lady Sabrina Elena Daunton and Lord James Harold Daunton, the heir to the barony of Hardrail. He later on married Eslyn Ansang and is actually that's the James that we see within the books. His father passed away long before the book started. So Cora's parents passed away when she was 6, leaving her to live with her uncle. The Baron of Hardrail didn't like that his brother married a mermaid. He considered mer heritage or mixed mer heritage to be dirty, so he would barely interact with her, barely cared for her. Um, Left her actually quite destitute, and actually forbade Lady Sabrina to even speak to her cousin. But Cora grew up close with her cousin James, however, and they often called each other siblings. She ended up working in a tavern because she liked hearing the gossip that went on there and liked observing the people, and so she could also provide for herself without relying on James, although he would offer to take care of her with the money that he got as the heir to the barony of Hardrail. Now, Cora met Adrian at the tavern she worked at while he was on a royal tour with his mother. Um, Her eyes had flashed silver and his had flashed red, which was a telltale sign of soulmates and was often considered a sign that the soulmates needed to be near each other as quickly as possible, because it was a rather quick way that magic told people that they were soulmates. Most of the time, people would find out a year or so into knowing each other. Somehow they would find out, but if your eyes flashed, it was considered a sign that something bad or something stressful might happen, and therefore you needed to be with your soulmate as soon as possible so you could weather the storm together. They married six ow. They married 6 months after meeting when Cora was 11, Adrian was 10. King Phoenix only allowed this marriage on the condition that Adrian would one day take a second wife for politics. And originally, he was arranged to marry Crown Princess Mayrin of Arata, because due to Mayrin being the Crown Princess, she couldn't be in Atlantis all the time. It was considered the perfect match, because their children would one day inherit Arata, while Cora's children with Adrian would inherit Atlantis. So the political bond was there, but they wouldn't really have to live as husband and wife. Mayrin would be in Arata most of the time, except for a few official occasions and whenever she and Adrian decided to try for a child. But Princess Mayrin and her younger sister, Princess Anitra, were actually introduced to Adrian and Cora at the same time, and Anitra's eyes flashed silver and red very quickly, while Adrian and Cora's eyes very quickly as well at the same time flashed crystal blue, which again is a telltale sign of soulmates, and it shocked the court as the person having multiple soulmates is extremely rare. It was considered to only happen once every couple hundred years. In reality, it happened much more often, it just wasn't really talked about. And in royal situations, that was when you would hear of a king having a mistress, and they just wouldn't talk about it to try and not cause a scandal. But due to Anitra being very close to her older sister, and she was considered kind of the darling of her parents, it was decided that her marrying Adrian would actually work well because Maren would never harm her sister, and King Braden was very fond of his daughter, and so King Phoenix had allowed it. And while the marriage contract negotiated between King Phoenix of Atlantis and King Braden of Arata, um, it actually had a stipulation that if Adrian and Anadra were to marry, they would not consummate the marriage until they were 16. Cora and Adrian did not have a clause in their marriage contract that stated that. Cora's uncle, again, he didn't really care about Cora. He just wanted her married off and not his responsibility anymore. So he wrote the contract hastily. He knew he was putting Cora in danger and he knew it, but he didn't really care, so he just ignored it. Um, the old Baron did die before the marriage went through, but James, Cora's cousin, wasn't able to convince the king to revise the contract. He had actually gone to the king with a revised contract that would have put in a similar clause to Cora and not Cora, to Adrian and Anitra's marriage, where they wouldn't consummate the marriage until they were older, but the king said no, and he demanded children almost immediately. He did this with James and Estlin as well. Um, he would get physically violent when either couple tried to protest. Adrian and Cora tried to say, no, we don't want to, we're not ready. And he would get physically violent, and he did threaten violence to Estlin on multiple occasions, which is why James ended up consummating the marriage, even though he thought it was far too early. He knew the king would follow through on that threat because Cora would visit him and she'd be covered in bruises from the king's abuse. And sadly, due to a mixture of factors, primarily Cora's young age and the king's physical abuse, she suffered a series of miscarriages before becoming pregnant with her daughter Luna at 14. At this time, the only official portrait of Cora was done, although it's not exactly known if she was pregnant with Luna at this time or if she didn't or if she got pregnant after it. The announcement came a month or so after the portrait was shown to the public, but it's not known what exactly when it was painted. Anitra did manage to keep the king's attention off of Cora for the majority of the pregnancy. She managed to kind of draw his anger away from her husband and wife to try and give Cora the best chance to carry to term. It did often result in Anitra being harmed in one way or another, typically verbally or socially. It wasn't until King Braden died that King Phoenix would actually be physically abusive to Anitra, but that wasn't for another couple of years. But Anitra taking the negative attention and the anger of the king off Cora gave her the chance to actually carry Luna to term. Cora went to labor when she was 15 and she successfully delivered her only surviving child. However, the midwife the king had assigned to Cora assassinated her not long after Luna was born while she was asleep, and she almost killed infant Luna as well. Adrian and Anitra had felt Cora's death through the soulmate bond and managed to get there just in time to stop the midwife. It's unknown if the king ordered this or if it was an attack from another kingdom. There was gossip for a while that the king had ordered it because it was known he didn't like Cora. Cora didn't really put up with him. She was known for fighting back, both verbally and physically, the few times she watched him try to hit his younger children, especially Princess Atlanta and Princess Estlin. Cora would actually throw things at the king's head and fight back with them. And it's part of why he was so cruel to her and Adrian. But Cora died on June 8th, 2986 BC, which was actually her 15th birthday. It was also her and Adrian's 4-year wedding anniversary, and as a result, Adrian never celebrated a wedding anniversary again, only Luna's birthday. Adrian never celebrated his wedding anniversary with Anitra as well, partially because she didn't really want to. She didn't like the big celebrations that the king insisted on, and also because she was equally as distraught at losing Cora. She, Adrian, and Cora would often celebrate all of their wedding anniversaries kind of at the same time. They would just have a joint celebration. But despite only being married to Cora and Adrian for a year at this point, she was said to have never fully recovered from losing one of her soulmates. Adrian would later describe Cora as brave to a fault, while Atlanta remembered Cora's rebellious nature and recalling that it was Cora who taught her how to climb the willow tree near Adrian's office, something Atlanta had been afraid of until Cora essentially said, "Come on, we're gonna do it." But her cousin, James Taunton, was said to have never smiled after his cousin's death. He showed very little emotion even after his marriage to Princess Eslin and the birth of their children, even though he loved their children very much and in time grew to love Eslin as well after years and years of marriage and a lot of hardship. They did grow to love each other after they had both kind of grown up because neither of them knew how to deal with the situation they were in. It wasn't until they were able to kind of ignore the world for a couple years and talk it out that they managed to actually have some love in their marriage. Um, but he didn't show much emotion after losing Cora because he was closer to Cora than he was to his own sister, Lady Sabrina. And despite her daughter, the Crown Princess Luna, inheriting her mother's temper and bravery and having a mix of Cora and Adrian's features, Luna actually had both white and red hair. It was James's child, Anya Jade Daunton, who looked the most like Cora. Anya had inherited her father's white hair and pale skin, and James wrote in a journal that she looked exactly how Cora did at her age. The only difference was her eyes, as Anya had inherited Eslin's violet eyes. But that's the story of Cora Catalina Ang Sang. She is already dead at the time of Hold On, but she does have a big impact in the story because almost everything Adrian and Anitra do, they're still thinking of her. At Adrian and Anitra's coronation, Anitra was pretty pissed off because she had always thought Cora was going to be queen and Anitra was going to have a different title and she was going to be kind of able to raise their kids. That's what the three of them had planned because Cora liked dealing with the court intrigue. It was something that amused her. So she liked the court intrigue. She liked all the duties that she was given. Whereas Anitra had always kind of just wanted to manage her home, even though she liked charity work. She also liked staying at home and working from home and taking care of her children. And she didn't really like the court intrigue and navigating it as much. Um, so she didn't. She was not happy when Cora died. She ended up becoming queen. Um, and she actually argued with Adrian before the coronation, stating that Cora should still be crowned post mortem. I hope I'm saying that correctly. Um, and that she didn't want to be crowned queen because it was supposed to be Cora's title. Adrian managed to convince her to be crowned queen, but it was a week-long argument. And really, the only reason it got resolved was because it was starting to affect Prince Amory, who was the youngest of Adrian's siblings. But Cora does have a big impact on the story, and even though we're not directly following the Atlantis royal family story in most of the books so far, it will be returned to in book 6 or 7, I believe. It's six, I think. Um, there's still little factors of Cora that you can find throughout the story if you look, and that's on purpose. Pretty much, Cora left a big mark on the world, and it's a subtle mark, but it's still there, and if you look, you'll find it. So, I hope you enjoyed. Stay safe. Have a lovely day, and I apologize for my coughing. I got a cold, and my cough will not go away no matter what I do. So, stay safe. Have a lovely day. See you guys next time. Bye.